Hey friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie, and today I'm super excited to be sharing Cirque's new mxmtoon collection. So if you aren't familiar, mxmtoon is a singer-songwriter, and I will have all of her stuff linked below in the description box. But this is a 6-piece collection released in collaboration with her. So as always, I will have some comparisons and share my thoughts at the end, but for now, let's get into the swatches. The first polish we have is Gogh Away, and this one is a pale yellow jelly. So I'm pretty sure this polish is inspired by, or at least referencing, her song Mona Lisa, but either way, I am so in love with this name. I think it is just so funny, and it is the perfect name for this beautiful light yellow jelly. So, as probably expected with a yellow jelly, it's not going to be the most flattering, at least in my opinion, in just one coat. So I prefer wearing this in at least 2, but normally 3 coats. Here on the second coat, I feel like it still was a little bit streaky, but color-wise, it does build up nicely. So I did find that I needed a third coat just to even out the patchiness a little bit. And it does build up the opacity a tiny bit more, but you still see a lot of your nail line. So you might be able to get away with just 2 coats, but I personally prefer 3. Next up we have Fuyū Jelly, and this one is described as a marmalade orange colored jelly. I really love this shade, especially for the season. I feel like it's just so bright and juicy, but there's still this warmth to it that is just so beautiful and flattering. I'm just really loving it. And I know it might look familiar, but we will be going over some comparisons later. But yeah, formula-wise, this one I would say is a little bit thinner and more on the jelly side compared to Gogh Away, which leaned a little bit more on the crelly side. As you can see here on 2 coats, you can see my nail line clear as day basically, and I think I did load up a little too much polish on the brush, so it kind of started to pool at the sides. So you might just have to be a little bit careful with your application with this shade, but other than that, it does build up nicely in 3 coats, but it's not going to cover up your nail line by any means. So if you're not a fan of sheer jelly polishes, this one might not be for you. Maybe you would like Gogh Away a little bit more, but I love both of them. The next polish we have is Glitter Glue, and it's described as a hot pink tinted polish with iridescent aurora flakies. So as beautiful as I think this polish is, especially in the bottle, it unfortunately doesn't really translate exactly to the nail. And I also wouldn't agree with the hot pink color description. I would say it's more of like a baby bubblegum pink tinted base. But yeah, either way, on the first coat, it is incredibly sheer, so it doesn't really look like there's a tinted base at all. You just kind of get this flaky bomb all over your nails. But here on the second coat, you start to see that pink color creep in a little bit more, and you obviously get a ton more flakies. The application for this one is super smooth. It's not anything difficult to apply. You don't have to fish for any of the flakies. It's just applying as is. So yeah, once I built it up to a third coat, you can see the pink a little bit more, but it's still really subtle in my opinion. I still think it is absolutely beautiful though. Like, it has such a soft, kind of whimsical, ethereal, romantic feel to it, but ultimately it just doesn't look like what you see in the bottle, and I really do wish that the pink base color was a little bit more noticeable. Up next we have Introverde, which is a mossy green with a sparkly pink to green duochrome aurora pigment. Maia from mxmtoon is an unashamed introvert, and she even has a song called Quiet Motions that's all about finding the comfort in your own company. So I absolutely love that, and I love this shade, especially the play on the name, considering this is a green polish. but I'm not sure if I would really agree with the mossy green description. I feel like this is almost like a jade green. It just feels a little bit bright to me to be called mossy, but either way, I still think it is such a pretty shade, and I love this duochrome shimmer in there. You can see on the left side of my nail, there's that strong purple shift, but in the corners of the right side of my nail, it does shift to this beautiful peachy gold kind of color, and then green would be in more extreme angles. But yeah, this one does build up really nicely, although you still can see some nail line after 3 coats, so it is a little bit sheer. Up next we have Crying Contest, and this one I'm pretty sure is inspired by or referencing the song Prom Dress, but this one is described as a dusty blue with a fine gold shimmer. So I would even say that this is a little bit like a periwinkle. I mean, when it comes to a dusty blue, it's like borderline periwinkle anyway. But yeah, on the first coat, I feel like it does look almost gray here. So it's not super flattering in my opinion in just one coat, but obviously these shades are meant to be built up a little bit more. So here on the second coat, you can already see that beautiful periwinkle blue base start to build up, but I personally love this in 3 coats just because it intensifies the color a little bit more, and it also makes it more opaque. This one is definitely one of the more opaque shades in the collection, so here on 3 coats, I wouldn't call it 100% opaque. You definitely can still see through to your nail line a little bit in certain angles, but I love this formula from Cirque, so this is easily one of my favorites from this collection. And rounding out the collection, we have Porcelain Plum, which is a warm purple with a fine reddish pink shimmer and a holographic sparkle. This shade was inspired by Maia's song Porcelain off of her debut EP Plum Blossom. So I absolutely love that song. The first time that I listened to it, it actually brought me to tears. That's like so embarrassing, but it just is such a beautiful song, so please go listen to it. But yeah, this polish is also just as beautiful as the song is. There's just something about this shade of purple with the shimmer that I think is just so flattering. Formula-wise, this one had really great coverage where I would say even after 2 coats, it was a little bit more opaque than Crying Contest, for example, but it still is not 100% opaque because these are sheers, and even on 3 coats like you see here, my nail line is still a little bit visible, so that's just how it goes. But yeah, I would also say that this one has a slightly pearlescent look to it as opposed to the shimmer that we saw in Crying Contest. I feel like this has a little bit more brushstrokes. I also wanted to take a quick moment to show off these super cute collection boxes that these polishes come in. I think they are so adorable, and I love that the cartons are the same colors as the polishes, but they're just mismatched. Now, getting into comparisons, we're starting with Gogh Away, and obviously looking at it next to Citron Jelly, which is their pastel yellow jelly previously in their collection. It's not discontinued or anything, but yeah, they are not dupes, but they're definitely similar when it comes to these light pastel yellow jellies. So here on 2 coats, you can see that they are pretty different, where I would say there's a lot more of a white, crelly leaning base color to Gogh Away, whereas Citron Jelly has a brighter, almost like citrusy yellow color to it. But I wanted to try and recreate Gogh Away by layering 1 coat of linen over the 3 coats of Citron Jelly. And I know there's a very apparent white streak down the center of my nail, but if we ignore that, I feel like the colors are very similar. So if you happen to have Citron Jelly and linen, you can probably recreate this. Next, for Fuyū Jelly, we are going to be looking at it next to Saffron Jelly, and these two are definitely a lot more different in my opinion. Saffron Jelly is more like a true orange tangerine sort of jelly color, while Fuyū has a lot more warmth to it and almost like a peachiness. So I definitely think these are both worth having. Here on 2 coats, you can definitely tell them apart again, where Fuyū is just a lot warmer and has like an almost coral kind of undertone, and Saffron has a more yellow leaning tone to it. So I did try to recreate it by layering a coat and then 2 coats of peach jelly on top of saffron jelly to try and get that warmth, but it just was not working out. As you can see, that was just a little too light, so I thought by darkening it, maybe I could use a coat of Lucky Jelly underneath saffron jelly, but that didn't work out either. It's like too dark, so Fuyū is definitely unique. Then for glitter glue, I wanted to quickly show this next to Crystal Tokyo, which is this really beautiful, dainty, pink, iridescent glitter topper, but that is the main difference. Crystal Tokyo has these glitter pieces, but glitter glue is flakies. So for a better comparison, I had to show this next to Cirque's Fantasia from last year's thermal collection. And these are nearly identical. The main difference really is that tinted base. But if you are just using them as toppers, here on 1 coat, I feel like you can barely tell the difference between them. Like, it's just so subtle to me that they're very interchangeable. But if you are using them on their own and you're building them up in more than 2 coats, you can start to see them apart. So again, you see more of that pink base coming through on glitter glue, while Fantasia has a little bit more of that milky ivory kind of base color. So yeah, here on 3 coats, again, it does build up to be a little bit more noticeably different. So they're not dupes, but definitely similar. Next up for Introverde, I wanted to quickly show this next to Mooncat's Velociraptor, which I know is probably not the shade you were thinking I was going to show, but these are very similar when it comes to that jade green base color and then the pink to peachy gold green shift. They just obviously have very different finishes, but color-wise, they are very similar. But for a better comparison, I did want to show this next to Mooncat's Earth to Gaia from the Goddess Complex collection, which is also described as like a jade green shimmer with a strong purple shimmer and also a delicate holographic sparkle. So these are definitely very similar in theory, but they are really different on the nail, in my opinion. Here on the first coat, you can see that Cirque's is a little bit darker and the shimmer is a little bit more defined, maybe. Like, it's more noticeable, like these specks, while Mooncat is more of a sheen, if that makes sense. So while they're similar, they're not dupes. I did want to do a quick side-by-side with Paradiso from Cirque's website. This looks really similar, but my best guess is that Paradiso is just lighter with a purple shimmer as opposed to pink. Next up for Crying Contest, I wanted to show this next to Cirque's Isle of Capri, which is a purple shimmer polish. This one is the closest, at least that I have in my collection, to Crying Contest, but the purple is very different as well as the shimmer. And I also wanted to show this next to Mooncat's Curse of Calypso, which is a beautiful purple shimmer polish that does have a gold shimmer to it, but I think head on, under this lighting at least, it leans a little bit more of like a bluish green, but you do see those peaks of gold. So once you swatch them on the nail, they are all very different from each other. Isle of Capri has that stronger blue shimmer with a darker, more opaque, crelly base, and Mooncat has that more glowy green to gold shimmer head on, so no dupes. Again, I did want to show a quick side-by-side with one of the polishes from the website. This one is called Wildflowers, and they definitely look similar here, but Cirque is pretty notorious for editing their website photos, so from what I've seen from reviews, Wildflowers is actually a bit darker looking. And lastly, for Porcelain Plum, I wanted to show this next to Mooncat's Poisonberry from the Lost in Folktale collection. This one is a purple shimmer kind of polish, but it's more cooler toned than how warm and red leaning Porcelain Plum is, both in terms of the base color and the shimmer. So these are really beautiful shades, very similar vibes with the finishes, but just totally different tones depending on if you prefer cool or warmer. But I would also say that Mooncat's is a little bit more sheer. And the closest website comparison that I have is Cirque's Cloud9, but this one looks a little bit different in terms of its base color. It seems like a more blue toned purple, but the shimmer is kind of similar. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for Cirque's new mxmtoon collection. As always, I would love to know what your thoughts are on this release because no surprise, I am a big fan of these. I think it is just such a cute collection, even though admittedly it does give me very soft and spring kind of vibes. So I'm not really gonna be gravitating towards them right now. I still think they are such beautiful shades to the point that I want to get backups of some of these because they're just so pretty. But I also don't think I mentioned this in the beginning of my video, but this is a limited edition collection. And I know some people really don't like limited edition things, but this is a collaboration with a singer-songwriter, so it makes sense that these shades are not going to be around forever, especially in their cute packaging. So if you are a fan of them, I definitely recommend grabbing them, especially if you don't have anything similar like I shared in my comparisons portion, because if you do, then I can understand why you might not be as excited for some of these shades because they admittedly are pretty similar, but I don't have any of them, so that's why I'm happy about these because they're like filling in those gaps in my collection personally. But if you also don't have any of the shades, I would recommend picking these up because these all come with the wide brushes and that just makes a world of difference when it comes to application, specifically for the jelly polishes. But yeah, I'm just a big fan and I have become a big fan of mxmtoon, so I just really hope that you consider either picking some of these up or at the very least go checking out Maia's music. Again, I'll have all of her stuff linked down below. But in other exciting news, I almost forgot to mention this, I'm now a Cirque affiliate, so I do have a discount code for you. It's Polished Yogi. And unfortunately, it is a one-time use code. I'm hoping that they'll be able to change that eventually. But yeah, I have that code for you. So whenever you want to use it for 10% off, you can do that. But yeah, let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.